Hello, everyone. Well, it's great to be here. And I would like to say thanks to Chainlink and SmartCon for inviting me. And today we're going to talk about useDApp. So what's useDApp? useDApp is a framework for rapid DApp development. And I know what you're thinking. What could be possibly hard about DApp development, especially about frontend, right? You know, smart contracts or security, all that stuff. And I can tell you that it is surprisingly difficult. It's surprisingly annoying. And we would know it because, you know, we're Ethworks, we have 40 people all day long. We're building DApps with smart contracts and all the other stuff. And we do a lot of front-end development too. And we tried it all. We tried React. We tried React with Redux. We tried RX. We tried different architectures like domain-driven design. And it turns out there is nothing fundamentally difficult about building the front-end applications, but I can tell you there's a lot of those little annoying problems, and those little annoying problems come in all kinds of shapes and forms. And so, for example, if you're building a DApp, what you want to do is when user comes for the first to the DApp and the wallet is not connected, you want to give them the read-only mode when they can kind of play around. And it's a terrible user experience if they need to connect first. So a lot of those DApps that don't have that feature, people they're not getting a lot of traction. So it's simple, you know, you put an if in the code and, you know, you give 2 different providers and you can start working, right? But then there is another problem. When people are connected either in read-only mode or on they have connected a wallet, then the problem is that the current state, you want to display the current state. And the current state of the application can change every 15 seconds or so when the new blocks arrive, right? So what you want to do is you want to display all those different values, but then, you know, query your Alchemy node or whatever else you have in the background and make sure that there is, you know, you have the newest updated version. Now that creates a lot of requests and that creates a lot of costs on your Alchemy node. It creates a slow experience for the user as well, because there's all those different requests. So what you have to do is keep checking if the new block have arrived. And when the new block arrived, check for all the new values. But you still have a lot, the code of the complexity of the code increases significantly. And there is also the problem that, that you're still making a lot of requests because maybe you have a lot of values displayed here and there, right? So, and then there is more and more, like when you switch wallet, you wanna the content of the application to preserve. Now, more and more often, you wanna be able to switch networks. And in fact, if you go to Ethereum tutorial, you will see they tell you to refresh the whole website because it's so complex to manage the network change. Now we're entering the stage of layer 2, and all the applications gonna be working on more than one network. So that's going to be a huge problem as well. And we didn't even start talking about transactions. You know, you need to track the transaction, see what the status is. User can go to a different screen, so you need to show him notification, or you need to have a history of transactions. And there's just so many little annoying details. So that's why we created useDApp, so we can take the burden of all the problems away from you. It's a framework. It works pretty much with everything that is EVM compatible. And it allows for rapid development, so it takes all those problems away. useDApp has 3 features, not more. It has ability to connect, ability to manage connection, ability to read blockchain state, and ability to do transactions. But every single one of those features is done in a really good way, in a sense that you don't have to think about it. So for example, for connection management, you have read-only mode by default. You don't need to do anything. The network switching works out of the box. You don't need to know anything about it. All you need to do is have this just few lines of code, and there's a configuration here. Then you wrap your React application in this new component, this new wrapper, new provider that provides all these features to you. And yeah, so that's very, very easy. And now we're going to the reading from the blockchain. So we have these functions that allow to read from the blockchain. And here is something really clever going on here. So first of all, every value that you display will auto refresh every time the new block arrives, but only if the value has changed. This will also happen if you change the wallet or if you change the network. But more importantly, all the things that are visible on the screen is going to be put into the one list, and all those calls going to be squashed into one single multi-call. So every few seconds, there is a call to check if the new block have arrived. And if a new block have arrived, there is a second call that contains everything that you display and ask the blockchain for all the values, and only the values that has changed will be distributed to certain components. Can we move to the next slide? So maybe that's gonna work better. It's manual. So here's the code. It's really simple. So for example, here we have the first line that asks for the balance. It's a React hook. If you're familiar with React, you know that hooks works in a way that they take care of all the refreshing of the components. You don't need to know anything about, when the values change. You just ask for the value, and it's always going to be the most recent value. You can ask for the account that the user is connected with, and you can ask for the balance of your account the same way you can ask for any other balance. And then boom, off you go. You just write a piece of HTML and display it all. So we can try to move to the next slide and see if this time the demo will work. Let's see. And no, I don't think it's working. Can we try to play it? Oh, it's working, right? So you can see that now. Yeah, I think it's a different demo, but you're gonna see when the transaction is happening, you can see Ether balance 0.7 on the left side, and automatically it will change to 0.69. It just happened, and there was no additional code. It was just this user balance. And one thing you might wanna ask about, and if we can try to move to the next slide, is okay, it's cool that I can check the user balance, right? But can I do any arbitrary function call on the smart contract? And the answer is obviously you can. Let's see if we can get anything better. Can we try to move to the next slide? And let's see if we can get this code. Yeah, so this is the code. You can create your own hooks for any call of the smart contract. So in this case, we're creating use token balance, a hook that will return token balance. And there is just a few arguments it takes. ERC20 interface for ethers. So hey, what is your ABI? What is your smart contract like? The address of the smart contract, the name of the function to be called, and the arguments. That's it. And you get all those functions, refreshing, and all that stuff for free. So now let's try to move to the next slide, and we're gonna talk a little bit more about transactions. So you already seen that managing connection is not that simple, that managing reading from the blockchain is not as simple as it might seem. What about transactions? What could possibly be difficult about transactions? Well, it turns out that first of all, we need to track the transaction state. So we need to wait for transaction to happen, and it might succeed, it might fail. So there is plenty of repeatable code that you need to handle. But then it's rarely that the user only stays in one place when doing a transaction. Oftentimes the user would jump around and go into different places. So if he starts a transaction, he refreshes the page, or he went to another page, and it might take a few minutes or sometimes few hours for transaction to mine. So it's really a good practice, and you can see most of the good UX, the UI, UXs around in the DApp space have those notifications that gonna pop up when something happens, right? And even if something happened, maybe you were not around, maybe you want to check, it's still good to have this history, like the list of all the transactions. And that's exactly what we give you: a simple hook to manage your transaction, and two additional hooks, history and notifications, that you can use to display either history of all transactions or notifications, so the things that just have happened. And let's go to the next slide. And here it is, a very simple hook. We're gonna send some ether on this slide. So we have used send transaction. It returns a pair, a send transaction function, and a state. And you can use send transactions, and it takes a transaction as an argument, anything that goes like to value, gas price, or well, it's not the gas price anymore, but all the different values, data you can put in here. And the state variable will hold the current state of the transaction. And if we move to the next slide, you will see there's more states that meets the eye. So we have the mining state, transaction is pending. The success, transaction was mined and successful. We have a failed state, when the transaction was mined but failed. And we have two additional states that many people don't think about. One is none, so before the transaction was even triggered. And one additional state, which is exception, which happens if, for example, if users rejects the transaction in the MetaMask. So now it's a single enum that gives you ability to work with all those different states, and no need to wait for anything, no need to catch exceptions, no need to check the error codes, and so on and so forth. So it's very straightforward React component that just switch or if iterates over different states and shows accordingly to what is happening. Good. So here is a more advanced example when we're not sending Ether, when we're calling functions, when we're sending transactions to functions on the blockchain. And again, it's very simple. It's a hook use contract function. It takes two arguments, the contract we want to call and the name of the function. It returns two values. Again, the state can be success, failed, pending, can be none, can be exception. And there is a function send that accepts the arguments, the same arguments that the function on the blockchain accepts, right? So for example, if you wanna unwrap some Ether, we could send a function to a contract, to a vet contract. The function is called withdraw, and it takes single argument, which is the amount of wrapped Ether that we want to unpack. And there is a symmetric function deposit that allows you to wrap Ether, and it takes 0 arguments, but it does take additional override parameter for transaction, which is value in Vey. And yeah, so we can, shall we take last one chance with the tech team and try to play this last movie and see if it works? Let's try to do that. Oh yeah, so here you see the transaction being mined, and you see the notification on the top right, top bottom corner, and on the left, you see the transaction was successful. So this was all, and let's move to the next slide. So this was all done with just those, one more forward. Oh, now it's working. Yeah, so that's the slide. So we also use this use notifications, right? And use notification is a hook that returns an array of notifications. So notifications are the things that you usually display in the top right corner, on top left, or whichever corner, that gives you information about what just happened. And especially about transactions being transactions changing states, and also switching accounts or switching networks. Now, the funny thing is the notification is simply an array of objects, and every object has a state and description and whatnot. But the array is going to automatically modify when the state is changed, and some items going to disappear after a while. The time can be configured so that those notifications automatically disappear. Again, all you need to do is put a little bit HTML and CSS on top of this array, and there is no logic you need to write whatsoever. The notifications just going to work. And it's the same for history of transactions. The difference is the history of transactions is persistent, and things doesn't really disappear from that. So yeah, and there is last one thing I wanted to show you today. So if we can advance slide, let's see if I can do that. Oh, it was there. Yeah, that's the slide. Awesome. So just today, we are announcing that we release a browser plugin, a developer tools for useDApp. So whenever you go to useDApp, you can simply, whenever you're working with useDApp, wherever you have a website and you're developing it, and you're not sure what's happening under the hood, all you need to do is open developer tools. And can we move one slide forward, by the way? And you're gonna see that what's going on under the hood, just very simply. And yeah, so maybe I'm gonna share my screen just for a second and show you how it looks. So here I am in Firefox, and I am here connected, and there's this useDApp thing installed over here. I go to developer tools, and I'm gonna find useDApp here. Here is useDApp, and you can see there is a list of all the things that happened, and you can see, oh, new block was found, but no values were updated here, right? And every now and then we're gonna have this, oh, new block found, and it's gonna tell you how many variables have to be updated. And at the very beginning, when we started, first thing that happened, that we have this initialization thing, we connected to the main network, and one call was updated. So one value was read and updated here, right? Now, if I try to connect, let's try. So let's unlock. As long as I remember my password. Let's see, no, I don't remember my password. So what I need to do, instead, I'm just gonna go to another screen, and let's see if that works. And you see one call was updated, right? I went to a different screen with different values, and you see that there was one thing that used to have a value now disappeared. So we're not tracking that, and one new value have appeared. So yeah. So I think we're almost done. So can we show the next slide? Is the slides here still? I'm not sure. So here comes the slides. Let's try to advance it. So there's a few more things coming, but I only have 30 seconds. So instead, I'm just gonna tell you what to do next. Go to example.useDApp.io and play around and see the code is available on the GitHub, so we can see how simple code can generate those all cool advanced features. useDApp.readthedocs.io, check the documentation, and useDApp.io, our website, I can tell you officially sucks, but it's a good starting point still. So thank you very much.